All right, we have everything going, so I'm going to turn things over to Tishri and to Board Chair Brown.
Do you want me to say the interpretation piece?
That would be great. Thanks, Inés.
Para todos los que nos están escuchando, por favor, si necesitan interpretación, está el globito abajo en la pantalla que dice interpretación para que puedan escuchar lo que se discute esta noche. Gracias.
Okay, call the meeting to order, and we are going to, before we go to Tishri, we're going to start with the flag salute, and we got a new screen type of thing going to happen tonight. So Dr. Novotny's got a thing where our pictures will be smaller, but we're going to do the flag salute first, and Director DeHart's going to handle that for us. Director DeHart, are you good?
I would be if I was off mute.
There you go. Thank you very much.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Director DeHart. Appreciate that. Before we start, I just want to let everybody know that Dr. Novotny and his secretary from Willamette ESD, Tishri Tucker, is going to have some different format for us tonight. So we'll be able to have the public follow along on screen. So this will be kind of nice tonight. It'll be something different. So thanks you guys for bringing that. Tishri, do you have anything you want to add to that?
And nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay. We're good to go. I'll just review the agenda real quick here. Thanks, Inez, for giving everybody instructions in Spanish. We will start off with public comment. Again, we'll have everything read by our attorney from Willamette ESD, Lisa Freely. Then we will go to board comments, then student representative comments. We will have a presentation of a financial audit from Wilcox and Arredondo and Company. After that, we'll have our intern superintendent report from Dr. Dave Novotny. And after that, we will have reports and presentations. Nikki Fowler will be doing a monthly financial report. Under new business, we'll have accept financial audit from Nikki. We'll have approval of the intern superintendent contract from Lisa Freely. And then we will reappoint budget committee members. And again, that'll be Nikki Fowler. And so as we move into the meeting now, appreciate everybody for being here tonight. It's great to have you, Dr. Novotny. Thank you so much for coming to Newberg and helping us out. We really appreciate you very much. So we will start off at this time with Lisa Freely from Willamette ESD, and we will have public comment time.
Okay, here we go. Again, I will read these in the order in which they were received. So the ones that were received the earliest, we'll start with. Members of the board, I was most surprised to witness the indoctrination of Newberg students into the cults of racism and misogyny. Whether the express support of the board for the Marxist socialist ideology of the Black Lives Matter movement as detailed in your adopted anti-racism statement, or the published discord of the district staff in recruiting students to the LGBTQ++ constructs. Students are being led down a path that is not only destructive to the students personally, but to a respectful society as well. Trying to hide the racist ideals of critical race theory and the jargon of an educator is futile. We, the citizens of Newberg, see by the teachings throughout the district that straight white male students are to learn their rightful place in society at the bottom tier of existence. We see the destruction of female achievement by males masquerading as females. We see the falsity of the din of chanting systemic racism. We see the war on diversity of thought with only staff posters and flags touting leftist ideologies are present. We see the attempt to deconstruct the nuclear family and replace it with the government. We see what you're doing here, and we will not allow it to have further purchase in our schools, in our town, or in our lives. In other words, quoting NBC reporter Kelly Stavist, let's go, Brandon. Please enter my comments into the record. On January 11th, Newberg School Board meeting, Scott Steckley. School board directors, I'm writing to recount a recent interaction with the board chair. I sat down for coffee with Dave Brown on January 6th. Early in the conversation, he noted the tendency to label others and the need for civility in our discourse, parentheses, with which I agreed, close parentheses. I introduced myself and asked a few questions, telling Dave I was trying to reconcile his words and actions as a board member. I asked him the following question. In your 2019 campaign statement, you said we need to get to know each student and we can do a better job and spend less. During the tenure of Dr. Joe Murlock as superintendent, the Newberg Public Schools report card showed an increase in on-time graduation rate, even when the district added English language learners, mobile students, and students with disabilities. On-time graduation rates increased similarly for multiracial and migrant students. A dire budget shortfall was turned into a considerable savings balance, and the district passed a substantial bond in an ideal time to capture historically incredible interest rates, saving the district millions every year over the life of the bond. Those results sound like exactly what you campaigned on, quote, doing a better job of spending less, unquote. What drove you to fire a superintendent who was succeeding in the exact goals on which you campaigned? Dave responded by standing up and walking out saying, quote, I see a petty little person and you can quote that, unquote. Board members, please take any action you deem appropriate in accordance with existing board policies addressing respectful interactions with the public. Erin Dunlap, PhD, parent, Newberg School District, research scientist, and apparently petty little person. My name is Sarah Sarro, and I'm a parent of 2 students in Newberg. I want to share why I'm voting yes to recall Dave Brown and Brian Shannon. I don't know them personally. I didn't grow up here, so no one in my family was coached by Dave. I've never met Brian, and we don't share close friends. I don't know if they're good or bad people, whatever that means. Most in favor of the recall, and they come from all walks of life, liberals, conservatives, religious, non-religious, young, old, etc., aren't concerned with the people Dave or Brian were years ago. We are concerned with what they're doing now and what it is costing our schools. I am judging their actions as members of the Newberg School Board, and I find them to be incredibly detrimental to our schools and community as a whole. Indoctrination has to be the 2021 word of the year for Newberg Dundee. Most are using it as a trigger word to make people feel scared and don't seem to remember what it actually means. Quote, the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically, unquote, or parentheses, close parentheses. If anything, most people want more critical thinking in our schools. Let's teach our kids that just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean it isn't true. Learn from one another's experiences. Do we really want school to be just reading, writing, and arithmetic? I want kids who have learned healthy conflict resolution, history that isn't written by the winning side, and maybe you know some geography and science. Dave and Brian bring up keeping politics out of school every chance they get, but seemingly seem to be perfectly happy to accept money from multiple right-wing PACs. Dave doesn't even like Newberg. After all, he was said we were an outhouse at a Free Oregon meeting in December. Is that someone who should be leading our schools? Look around at the people around you and ask yourself what's at stake they have in the outcome, what motivates them to feel the way they do. I'm fighting for my kids and their friends and classmates. They have broken countless public meeting laws. They have taken the opportunity to exclude the community, and regardless of stating how much they value our input. And the 2 minutes is over. Okay. And that was, I think I told you, Sarah Sarro. Greetings, board members, board of directors. I'm a parent of 2 children in the school district. Indoctrination has to be a term thrown around repeatedly as a justification for the actions that the 4 majority board members are wanting to fight against. I am all for preventing indoctrination, as I've experienced lifelong damaging effects of indoctrination that was present throughout my entire childhood into my adult life. Indoctrination means the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. Indoctrination typically happens when information is controlled or banned, when discussion, questions, and differences are shamed and not allowed, or where there is only representation or promotion of one set of beliefs. True education is a feast of all viewpoints and worldviews. Real education teaches critical thinking and then allows the learners to draw their own conclusions. No one is trying to teach about the BLM organization or force people to become LGBTQIA. Rather, these symbols are safeguards against indoctrination by adding more perspectives and representation to the diverse expressions found in our community. It says everyone is welcome to show up as they are. That includes conservatives who disagree. They simply don't get more voice and power than everyone else to only allow their views to be amplified or expressed. Please do the work of preventing indoctrination by encouraging wide literacy of topics, making friends with people vastly different than your background, and building critical thinking skills where people look at many angles as possible and come to their own conclusions. Just like I can critically know the difference between the phrase Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter, I can know the difference between the Save Our Schools slogan the majority ran on and the group of my peers that are asking voters to save our schools by voting yes on both recalls. Sincerely, Liz Carafa. As a longtime Newberg resident, as a parent of a child in the district, and as a business owner in Yamhill County, I'm writing today with a simple appeal. Please stop sowing discord and division in our community. Please stop sacrificing the well-being of our students and district staff to further your own political aspirations, or worse, the agendas that are being foisted onto our citizens by organizations such as Free Oregon. Our children are pawns, our teachers are not your adversaries, and the people who live in Newberg should not be party to the fringe alt-right ideologies of folks who do not even live in this area. It is clear that the majority members of this board welcome outside influence with open arms. They seek to leverage the situation for political gain. Their actions have done incalculable damage to the hearts, minds, and pocketbooks of the taxpayers that live here. Students are being removed from school precisely because of the actions of these four members, my own child among them. The seeds you choose to sow do nothing to benefit this community. They do not foster togetherness. They do not help us navigate the pandemic. They absolutely dig the lines of division more deeply. So please, before you choose to appear in an interview with an out-of-state homeschooling advocate, before you pal up alongside the Proud Boys and other extremists, before you make another hasty decision that costs the district hundreds of thousands of dollars, I beg you, think of how your actions might, or as seems to be the case lately, might not benefit the students and the schools you oversee. Erin McCarthy. She is President-elect NATS Cascade Chapter, founder, Erin G. McCarthy Vocal Studio. Members of the board, I was most surprised to witness the indoctrination of Newberg students into the cult of racism and misogyny. Whether they express support of the board for the Marxist ideology of Black Lives Matter movement as detailed in your adopted anti-racism statement, or the published discord of district staff in recruiting students to the LGBTQ++ construct, students have been led down a path that is not only destructive to the students personally, but to a respectful society as well. Trying to hide the racist ideals of critical race theory in the jargon of educators is futile. We, the citizens of Newberg, see the teachings throughout the district that straight white male students are to learn their rightful place in society at the bottom tier of existence. We see the destruction of female achievement by males masquerading as female. We see the falsity of the din of chanting systemic racism. We see the war on the diversity of thought with only staff, posters, flags touting leftist ideologies are present. We see the attempt to deconstruct the nuclear family and replace it with government. We see what you're doing here, and we will not allow it to have further purchase in our schools, in our town, and in our lives. Please enter my comments in the public record on January 11th, the Newberg School Board meeting. Thank you for your consideration. Mary Steckley. I am writing to you as a parent whose 2 sons and 2 stepchildren graduated from the Newberg public school system. As someone who has lived in Newberg for half her life, as an elder in my church, and as a college professor who ardently believes that critical thinking and diversity are the cornerstone of good education, I have watched school board meetings the last 6 months with increasing horror, witnessing a once stable and functioning school board becoming a place of chaos and disorder, where any suggestion of consensus building and thoughtful dialogue is shut down by directors who seem unwilling to consider other viewpoints. Director Piros's consistent message that a committee should be established to build policies that weigh the positions of all stakeholders in our district is consistently shut down, suggesting that the school board doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to build consensus, doesn't want to even entertain the idea that there is more than one viewpoint in the district. The final meeting of 2021 made me feel utter despair for my community and its fate, now in the hands of 4 people who seem dead set against anything but their own narrow understanding of educational leadership. Even when student representatives were finally given time to speak, thanks only to Director Piros' urging, the other board members, folks who said they want to listen to students, chose to ignore them and thus to display the board members' ignorance. More egregious in my mind was the board members' use of scripture to make their claims. Not only does reading scripture to board meeting transgress any understanding of the separation between church and state, a principle on which our country was founded, but as a deeply committed Christian, I found the use of scripture to be craven, manipulative, making a mockery of the Jesus Christ I love and serve. Jesus would weep at the lack of clarity, mercy, or empathy displayed by the majority of the board members of this board. You have a chance in this new year to make things right and start working together if you truly want to be a public servant. If you want to make the faith you express more than empty rhetoric, you must consider all stakeholders of the public. And that is Melanie Springer, Mock, Professor, Department of English, George Fox University. Dear board members, I desire the following comments to be read into the record on January 11th, 2022. These recalls, which I submit in my opinion, are instigated by radicals, many of whom do not even live in the school district, has done nothing but divide the citizens of this district, all under the guise of making students the priority. These recalls are nothing more than using students as collateral pawns to further the radical beliefs of the proponents of these recalls. These recalls are supposed to unify the citizens. I asked how many people really believe that. I submit all the radicals want to do is indoctrinate the students with their left-wing political agenda. Please name one positive accomplishment the radicals can point to that made positive gains with the school district. I don't know of one. Lastly, I have heard that teachers are using school time and school property to campaign in favor of these recalls. I thought that teachers were being paid to teach students. They aren't allowed to use taxpayer dollars to further their political beliefs. Thank you for your attention, Michael G. Gunn. Hello, I am the mother of a first grader at Edwards Elementary and a Newberg resident. Since my child is only in the first grade, I don't have extensive experience with school boards. I must say, though, I had no idea how much damage one school board could do to a district in such a short period of time. The ban on political symbols was an inauspicious way for the school board tenure to begin. The ban was poorly conceived and legally dubious. The ban has dramatically divided this community, and that is not what a school board is supposed to do. You're supposed to be leaders to work together to find solutions to make our schools better. This has not happened since the new majority took over. Everything about Dr. Morlock's termination disgusts me. You terminated an excellent superintendent who brought fiscal stability to a district that had been struggling. You fired him for no cause and have done little to explain this irresponsible decision to your constituents, except to imply that his termination is related to declining enrollment, without mentioning the role of global pandemic played or enrollment trends across the state and country. We are left to assume that his termination has to do with the political symbol ban. But in the same meeting when you fired Dr. Morlock, you refused to rule on the be known sign because it was a, quote, gray area, unquote. You were unwilling to enforce your own ban, but you fired a highly qualified and effective superintendent for the same. I don't think I could feel more disgust, but then came the process to find a replacement. You voted for a, quote, compressed, unquote, timeline, so a superintendent could be installed before the recall votes. You voted to keep the process closed so the community would not have any input. You voted to hire an executive search firm that promised to deliver a new superintendent in a matter of weeks, and then that firm backed out the very next day. What kind of circus is this? It's not a circus. It's my son's school board making irresponsible and reckless choices that will impact students negatively for decades. I could go on and on. I'll just leave it at this. You were elected to support our students and our teachers, and the 2 minutes is up. To all Newberg School District Board staff and community, I believe Black Lives Matter, but I don't support the violent BLM organization that wants to defund police and stands by saying ACAB. I feel all BLM signs and symbols should be removed from Newberg classrooms. I also believe gender identity is a topic for home discussion and not school instruction. The genderbread person as seen at genderbread.org has been used in Newberg schools, and I feel this is not appropriate. Similarly, I don't want to have NRA Trump or religious messaging in our classrooms. I would like to see us promote, quote, all are welcome, unquote, and get back to reading, writing, math, science, and sports. Jim Talt, Newberg resident. I write to you as a rational adult in the Newberg School District. My husband and I have lived here since 2003. 4 of our children have gone through the schools, 2 of which are in high school now. I see what you're trying to do. You want to make sure everybody feels supported. People without a special recognition are now feeling the way the marginalized used to feel, and they don't get it. I get it, but I also think that perhaps you should compromise. That is the essence of what our country was built on and what we strive to be. Instead of finding the compromise, perhaps no flags, political signs in the classroom. They can be displayed at the office, counselor's office, front door, question mark. Let's make people feel welcome. Tell them they are seen and give a neutral space for education to happen. But that was too hard for anyone. And instead we have this. We have lawsuits and a stubborn 4 who think cronyism and together for none is the way to go. I disagree with any bans. I don't shy away from educating my children about the world. Denise Arnold. My name is Ross Davis. I'm a school administrator and an educator with 26 years of experience and a Newberg resident of 16 years. And I can clearly state that this board is anti-educator and directors Brown and Shannon must be removed for the health of our schools. Where is the support for school staff burned out after 2 years of pivoting on ever-shifting COVID policy? Other districts have negotiated additional days off around holidays, tokens of appreciation for educators with local businesses, or proclamations of appreciation for the extraordinary efforts of educators right now, but not the Newberg School Board. Instead, they and their supporters assail our teachers with slogans implying our teachers spend too much time indoctrinating their children, even going so far as associating with fringe bloggers who push hashtags like jail Newberg teachers, fire Newberg teachers. Our educators want to provide our children with the skills they need to be successful, satisfied citizens, employees, employers, entrepreneurs, neighbors, and taxpayers. They deserve our support and admiration, not threats to their livelihood or libelous aspersions to their character. Instead, we get anti-educator policies that restrict topics of conversation from anything, quote, controversial, unquote, a subjective term that both creates a chilling effect for teachers and makes the board the arbiters of speech. This clear violation of the First Amendment has even invited 2 lawsuits that our tax dollars must defend. And here's the amazing thing. If you believe your child is being indoctrinated by his or her teacher, there's a complaint process. If true, you should use it. If your child feels unsafe or offended by a poster or a symbol displayed in class, there's a complaint process. We don't need an extremist anti-educator board to accomplish the goal of keeping politics out of the classroom. Mark my words, if this board is not held accountable for its actions, we'll be lucky to retain 70% of our teachers. We've already lost the best superintendent we've had since I lived here. 2 minutes is up. To the Newberg School Board members, one of the most divisive and destructive tactics in is to weaponize untrue information by spreading it quickly and strategically. Even if it can be easily debunked, the damage caused or accomplishment for the propagator cannot be undone. I believe this has been the primary strategy of the proponents for the school board recall elections. To misrepresent those who seek to defeat may even prove to be a successful campaign move. However, there are always associated consequences to these methods. One of which is that not only a no vote from this voter, but also a no confidence vote in the movement and their future endeavors. Breaking trust and alienating those who might have contributed to some of your legitimate concerns may give you a temporary win, but in the long run prove to be a costly tactical error for you as you bleed supporters. You will find less to work with the next time you ask to be trusted. Of course, this principle works in both directions. Thus, I humbly plead for our community to renounce these shameful methods and try to truly identify the common problems and concerns that we all might make a positive contribution. Up to this point, quote, better together, unquote, has seemed to be a front for educational bullying and politicking. However, we actually would be truly better together if we sit down in honesty, humility, in the hopes of fairly and civilly representing our opponents, acknowledging both the strengths and the weaknesses of other parties, and landing on action items that truly serve the interests of the kids in our community. It's possible, but not probable, unless we change our techniques. The temptation is to go to war with our neighbors, but it seems that is the option where everyone loses. And this is signed anonymous, but the email address it came from was Checks Balance Isaac Lynn. And that is all our comments for today.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you. Okay. We will move on from here to our board and student representative comments. So we'll start with the board first. And our first one up will be Director Pyros.
I want to thank everyone who wrote in. I appreciate hearing from everyone. Everyone's voice is important, and I do listen to them all. I want to acknowledge the 27 administrators, the 17 confidential employees who work in the district office, the 238 classified members of our staff, and the 318 teachers and counselors that serve every day our students and go to work every day and work through this pandemic situation to make sure that our students learn what they need to learn to be successful in life. And I just want them to know I really, really appreciate them. And without them, we wouldn't have our schools. And I hope you stay safe. And I know that your goal is to teach our students what they need to learn. And I appreciate them and just wanted to acknowledge all the employees that work in the district to make sure that the lights are on, the building's clean, the food is prepared, the students are checked in and watched over and cared for. Our nursing staff, my hat goes off to all of you. And thank you so much. I know in the consent agenda, there are new hires, but there are also people who resigned from the district. And every time there is a loss of personnel, I know what it's like to have to fill the gap until that hole is filled. And our teachers and our classified and our district office has been doing a great job of doing what it takes to make sure the schools are open and working for our students and for our parents. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Pinner, you're up.
I want to start just by saying Happy New Year, everyone, acknowledging we've made it into 2022, which is always a cause for celebration, even in challenging times. And I hope that everyone was able to spend time with those that you love and to reflect on what you're hopeful for in the coming year. And as always, thank you to our student representatives and staff, parents, and community members who have taken the time this evening to attend our meetings, and also for those who have submitted comments. At Dr. Novotny's request, I spent a little bit of time thinking about areas of focus for our board for the next 60 days. And as we all know, the Omicron variant is raging throughout our community, and COVID response is vital in ensuring that we're safe and that our students and staff are supported. I am deeply concerned that we do not have permanent leadership during the height of this pandemic that can help us mitigate the potential loss of learning. Not having a permanent superintendent and missing an assistant superintendent have put more pressure and stress on an already overworked and overwhelmed staff. The focus of the next 60 days is simple and yet daunting. Please focus on the immediate needs of students and staff to ensure we can ride this wave with the least impact on learning. As a board goal, I would like to agree that the drama and dysfunction of the board will not be center stage during this critical time. However, in all likelihood, this is wishful thinking, but my sincere hope is that district and building leaders are allowed to do what they do best, and that is to support our kids. Dr. Novotny, I am thankful for your leadership in this desperate time. While we have all been learning that things can always get worse, I'm hopeful that this will be the low for the Newberg School Board. We need more compassionate and competent humans to run towards this fire, to support our staff and students first and foremost. Thank you for stepping in, and thank you for your ongoing support of the staff and students of Newberg. Over the last few months, I've had the opportunity to begin to volunteer in schools again, and it's great to be back in buildings, seeing kids learning. I've had the opportunity to support teachers in preparing materials and organizing supplies. And while volunteers cannot directly interact with students like we used to, there is still so many ways that we can support our educators and our students. I encourage all of you to reach out to your students, teachers, bus drivers, support staff, and check in. Just check in with them. Ask if you can help, offer words of encouragement, and be an ally for them. The holiday season has come and gone, but in the middle of all of this, we saw such a spirit of giving. Giving trees were popping up at schools, Christmas boxes and holiday meal supports sprang up at every one of our schools. I saw people from across our community contributing time, money, and resources to provide a joyous holiday season for those with the most need. I had the opportunity to connect with a local business and some staff to support getting a couple of bikes and helmets to some young kids. And the generosity and spirit of giving in a time when we are all stretched thin and overwhelmed was a reminder of how caring our community is. And when it comes to ensuring that our students are the priority, our community continually shows up. I also recently began serving as a mentor in the Aspire program at NHS. This program pairs mentors with students to help them envision and plan for their post-high school life. I met with students who are dreaming and hoping of a brighter future. The possibilities and hopes that they hold are palpable. These young people are on the cusp of their adult lives. They are looking at the world and seeing where they can lend a hand and make life better for others. This spirit of serving others was inspiring and a reminder that the kids are already better than us. They've got this. And with our support, they'll fly. Without our support, they'll still fly, but they will not forgive us. As a parent, I am constantly reminded that the youth in our community are outstanding. They are weathering a global pandemic, political extremism, division, hatred, and uncertainty with hope and with grace. They are telling us who they are and what they need. We can choose to listen, or we can choose to ignore them. Either way, they're on fire and they're watching all of us. Finally, tonight, I want to encourage all of you to vote. Ballots are due next Tuesday, January 18th by 8 p.m., and drop boxes can be found throughout the community. If you have questions or need information regarding your ballot or drop-off sites, I encourage you to contact the Yamhill County Clerk. As Americans, our civic duty is to engage and participate in our local governance. We are a government that is by the people and for the people. And while this was written with only land-owning white men in mind, our nation has evolved to include all eligible voters, regardless of gender, race, or income. And like our national history, I'm hopeful that our community will continue to grow and evolve into a place where we stand up and say unequivocally that to our kids, you matter, your futures matter, and your lives matter. I hope that this community can come together to stand up to the overwhelming pressures of our time that call on us to be fearful, divided, and angry. Let us show the world that our town, our children, cannot be used to spread misinformation and that their futures will not be sacrificed to extremism. Education is foundational to the American dream. And while that dream has been out of reach for far too many for far too long, we can change that here in Newberg. Let our community be a beacon of hope and prosperity for years to come. Thank you.
Director Pena, you're up.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Dr. Novotny for stepping in and supporting our staff and students during these difficult times. As it is a new year, I do have hopes for a brighter future. Like Brandy said, you know, our students are already better than us. And I'm just so grateful for everyone that is getting engaged and participating at whatever level for the education of these students. This really matters, and I'm just happy to be a part of whatever is meant to be, because we're all growing and learning from each other, from the mistakes and the positive outcomes as well. And I am just grateful to be here tonight and have made it into 2022. We'll see what this means for us and in the district, but really excited to see what this district holds. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Shannon, you are up.
It'll be very brief. I just want to thank everyone who's sent me messages of support over the last month. It's been really heartening, and it's been amazing to see the community mobilize to take back their schools, and we're just getting started here. So I think next week's going to be a very good week for that movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Powell, you're next.
I also would like to thank Dr. Novotny for taking on this role, and I'm really, really thankful for that, and that you're able and willing to do this. And I would like to throw out that no matter what the outcome of the election, that I think it's important for us as a board to learn how to work together. And I had a thought of maybe doing, if we could get together and maybe do like a work session with a mediator that could maybe help us through some of our differences that we struggle with. Because I feel like if the public can see that we on the board, even with our differences, can work together, then maybe there is hope for our communities and school. So I like to throw that out there, and maybe we can do that in the future and get that scheduled. I don't know, but just a thought. But that was it. Thanks.
Thank you. Director DeHart, you're up.
Yeah, well, Happy New Year. Glad to see everyone's back. Shout out to all our Newberg School District employees. Thanks for all you do. And a big shout out to Dr. Dave Novotny. I just appreciate you standing up and taking on this challenging work. I know you won't be able to resolve all of our issues in the next 60 days, but you know, I kind of looked at your presentation. I just appreciate you leaning forward, talking to some of the district employees. I really look forward to speaking with you and talking about some of the ideas, picking your brain on your experience as a administrator and teacher, and kind of starting to formulate a vision that perhaps we can all rally around and benefit of the students. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close out the board comments there. I was taking on Dr. Novotny's challenge also, but I got to meet Dr. Novotny over a month ago, and we had a long phone conversation. It was awesome. So Dr. Dave, thank you so much for coming and helping us out. It is a difficult time. It's a time where the community of Newberg is divided, and we have people very passionate on both sides of the issues. And it's great to have somebody with your character here to lead us. So you're very much appreciated. I'm going to stick to the goals, and I don't want to get political tonight. I think that everybody will go vote, and I think it is also a important thing that everybody goes and does. It's we live in the greatest country in the world, and we have that opportunity to vote. We should take advantage of it and vote with your heart. And it is a big decision, and it's the direction of how our district's going to go is probably on the line. This might be the most important vote you ever make in the town of Newberg. And I would, weigh your vote, how you think you want that to go. The goal for me was, I've just seen in all my years at the high school and everything that was successful between the classroom and athletics and our school classes as a whole, projects that were done, was the bar was raised. I would like to see the bar raised, not lowered. I'd like to see all of our students given an opportunity for a great education. And it can start now. It doesn't have to wait for 60 days or anything like that. When we lower the bar, students will probably let us do that, and they won't like it. They get off to college and they can't write an essay. They can't read as well as they should. They can't do the mathematics they should. We need to raise the bar. And raising the bar doesn't mean we make it hard for people. It means we believe in them. And I believe in our students that they have the opportunity to get a great education. However we move forward in this town, we do have everything here to make it great. And that is one of my two big goals, is that we would raise this bar, and we can't do that with too many distractions. We need to get focused on education, and our students, when they get to 18 and they go off to school, military, or the workforce, they'll be very happy that we raise the bar. My second one was a challenge to the staff. I know we have a lot of staff that are in favor of a recall, and I know we have a lot of staff that are not. I've gotten calls from both sides. I would say that my challenge to the staff: is it a great place to work right now? Is it really a great place to go to work? Does everybody feel comfortable? Does everybody like their drive to work and their drive home? Are people being signaled out for political reasons? Are they being signaled out for, how they feel about vaccines and all that, the political type of stuff? When I worked at Newberg High School for 20 years, I felt like I was accepted for whoever I was at that time. That our staff would come and go and change, but I was accepted. I could come to school every day and feel welcome, and I could also feel safe at Newberg High School. That's not the case anymore. And why? Not trying to be silly here, but I got the opportunity over the Christmas break to go see Gladys Knight with the Oregon Symphony. And Gladys Knight said something that was very profound and very simple. She stopped her concert about halfway through and she said, we could solve all of our problems in 1 minute if we would just turn to the person next to us and give them a hug and tell them we love them and tell them that we're their friend. She said, we don't have to hate, and we don't have to be mean, and we don't have to go after people. She said, just get to the person next to you and give them a hug. I know that sounds pretty quaint, but she was sincere. And if you think about it, with all the rhetoric out there and all the tough stuff being said, I would like to see our staff, and I know as a board, we don't get along. And I think Director Powell said a little bit ago, as we move forward, we will have to sit down and start to have a recovery process. And I would challenge our staff and our schools to look at every single employee that they go to school with every day. And are they okay? Are they really okay? Or are they being left out? Are they being shunned? Or are they accepted at school? Because I think we want that for our kids. And I think we want that for everybody that comes into our schools. So that was my two challenges. So again, Dr. Novotny, thank you so much for coming to Newberg. We really appreciate you. And I'm going to go to our student comments at this time. So first up, I'm going to go with Maddie. Maddie, would you like to speak first?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for leaving a comment, and specifically the students. I feel like the students are often overlooked, which is a little ironic considering a school board is for a school and a school is for students. And, people don't always see this because they're like, they're just kids, what do they know? But the fact is that we're at school 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, and we see a lot, and we know a lot, and we know a lot more than people might think that we know. And I just ask that you listen to our opinions, because we do have opinions and we have thoughts, and not even just listen, but to also take it into consideration, because you also have Rowan and I both here on the board that we were elected, and so if you have questions, you can ask us. We're both happy to answer them about what we feel about what goes on in the school. We're more than happy. So I just ask that you just take all of the students, it doesn't matter what they feel about what, just every single student just take what they think into consideration because it matters. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate that. Rowan, we'll go to you next.
As we arrive at the end of the semester, our numbers of positive COVID cases are once again on the rise. Just today, we had 8,040 new cases in Oregon, and 441 of those came from Yamhill County. We are all sending good thoughts out to the teachers and staff of the district. Because they are on the front line of COVID exposure. We can all do our part at school and at home by wearing our masks properly in school and being responsible in group settings. I just want to say a big thank you out to all the staff and all the bus drivers and everyone helping out in the district right now. It's really appreciated by all of us. And also, I would like to agree with Maddie's sentiment. We are always here for any answers to questions about the school. And it's really important that we hear voices and public comment as well. Thank you, everybody who submitted stuff.
Thank you, Rowan. Rowan, when you made that hand gesture this way, it's almost like Maddie was in the right sitting next to you, but I know your rooms are different though, but that was good. So thank you very much. It's great to have the student reps here, and hopefully as we move forward in the board, you guys will get more of a role and a voice, and we will get those chances to hear you guys more. So thank you. So moving on, next up, we're going into a presentation of a financial audit from Jeremy Gingrich of Wilcox and Arredondo and Company. Jeremy Gingrich with Wilcox and Arredondo will present the report. Is in their 4th year as an auditing firm for the district. They have performed thorough and complete analysis, spending 2 weeks on site interviewing staff and reviewing records. The report of the financial audit will highlight the following information. Jeremy, are you good to go?
I believe I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, lots of nods. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I first off want to start by thanking you for having me and for your continued support of our firm. I don't know if Nikki has had the opportunity to share. I'm on vacation, so I'm a little scattered, but I don't know if she's had the chance to share that we as a firm have had to take a long, hard look at our business due to some staffing changes and things that have gone on within our firm. And we're going to have to step away from the school district auditing business, actually all auditing. And so if you were not aware of that, Nikki is going to be putting together, unfortunately, an RFP so that you can go out and find another auditor in the coming years. We want to thank you again for your support of our firm and for the confidence that you as a board have placed in us over the years. We've had a good relationship both with the board and with the management of the district over the years, and we've been very grateful for that. That being said, what you're here for is to get our audit opinion. And so I am going to share my screen and go right to the financial statements. And hopefully I'll be able to do this correctly. And you'll all be seeing a report on the financial statements. Is that what is showing on your screens?
Yes.
I've got a thumbs up. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So I'm going to start. This is 12 pages in the PDF. It's the first numbered page because we feel it's the most important. It's what you've hired us to do. We are reporting to you on the financial statements as a whole. The entire package of paper or this PDF that you're viewing is encompassed by this report. And on the second page at the very top, on the very bottom of the first page, we have our opinion, and we have issued again this year an unmodified opinion. In school district terms, that's a grade A on your financial statements. What the word unmodified simply means is that we didn't find anything during our audit procedures that rose to a level where we felt like we needed to include it in our main report to tell you about. So great, good start, good report. I do want to walk through a couple sections of the report without going into great detail and explain briefly what they are. I won't use too much time, I promise. The first section is the management discussion and analysis. And this is the spot where Nikki has an opportunity to present to you not only a comparison with the prior year, but her expectations, or a few of her expectations of what might be coming in the future year. And so if you don't look at much else in this document, I would at least spend some time and look at what your management is telling you about what's in these financial statements. You can see, I'll briefly scroll through the pages where you can compare the government-wide financial statements from year to year here. There's some charts and graphs to look at that provide some information. And at the very end is the section where she gets to share some of the things that will be coming for the future. There's another section in here. There's two statements actually that are similar to business type financial statements. And that's this statement of net position, and on the following page, the statement of activities. These both provide information that is similar to what you would have in the greater business community and would be comparable to a balance sheet and an income statement. Continuing on, oops, I hit the wrong button there, pardon me. Continuing on our budgetary financials, or statements on the budgetary basis. These are your governmental fund financial statements. We've got a switch this year. This was great during your budgeting process to go to 4 main funds, even though you detail out in your budget all of the funds that are within those different categories. For financial reporting purposes, they roll up into 4 main funds for you. So it gives you a nice recap of what's happening in the 4 different areas in the financial world of what's happening with the district. And these shouldn't be any surprise. They're information that you have been receiving on a monthly basis through financial reports on the budgetary basis. So those are the balance sheet here and the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Both of those statements have a reconciliation. I backed up 1 page here. This is a reconciliation where you go from the fund balance sheet. So the information you're normally used to seeing is converted over to those government-wide or more economic business type financial statements that include your assets and your greater assets and liabilities. And that's true also for the statement of changes and the statement of activities. Directly following that, we move into the notes to the financial statement. I've often made a joke that if you're a person with insomnia, if you start at the first note, you might not even make it through the first page before you go to sleep. That's said mostly in jest. There's a lot of information in here, and there's some really useful information, I think, for board members, and I always try to call attention to that. So I'm going to do so with the capital asset schedule. So it shows kind of a breakdown of your various categories of capital assets. Of course, with the bond passage, you have construction process that's happening. And so you'll see the addition of those items. Once they are completed, they will move down and become part of this capital assets being depreciated down here. And then on the next page is a schedule of your long-term debt. We have some new additions this year, and one bond that was completed, that the payments were completed this past year. So good schedule to see where the district is in terms with the various bond agreements that are out there. Moving on, there's quite a bit of additional information here in the notes going over the like the PERS and the other post-employment benefits that are a great part of school district expenses. Moving on even farther towards the back, you have some more budgetary schedules where you can look at budget to actual. And then moving on even farther back, there's some additional schedules that are required for ODE so that they can do their reporting to the federal government. And then we come to the second of the reports we issue you. And this is a report for the state of Oregon. So the state of Oregon requires you to have an audit every year, and that is the greater audit that we've done. But they also ask that a specific audit is done of certain compliance items with laws and regulations. The items they ask us to look at specifically are bullet pointed here in the middle of the statements. We don't have an opinion paragraph here, but we did not find anything within our audit procedures that led us to believe or required us to report to you any variances with those laws. So another grade A report, if you will. Our third report is not an opinion report. This is a report where we talk about the internal control over financial reporting. And this is required by the single audit, which is required from your receipt of federal funds. This report does not have an opinion, but it does provide a place for us, again, if we were to have found something, some sort of deficiency, whether that would be a material weakness or a significant deficiency, it would give us a place to tell you about that. We did not have one of those, and so kind of a boilerplate report. And again, as we go through here, grade A is kind of the school district term, so we'll stick with that. The last report in the financial statements is the single audit report, and we do have an opinion paragraph, and again, we have an unmodified opinion, grade A, that says we didn't find anything during our audit of the federal funds that rose to a level that we needed to discuss with you as a board. That is a really quick run through of what's in the financial statement package. Before I move on to the last report, is there anything anyone would like to ask at this time?
I have a clarifying question, if I may.
Yes.
These grade A reports and your findings that we are in good standing, just to clarify, they do go through June 30th of 2021, right? It's nothing that we have been doing since July 1st.
No, we are opining on financial statements that end as of January 30th, 2021. We do have a responsibility to consider things that we know that have happened up to the issuance of our report, which I think was on December 30th, and to look and see if there's anything that was so egregious that we would need to bring it to the attention of whoever's utilizing the financial statements. But the report itself focuses on that period ending June 30th of 2021.
Thank you so much.
Good question. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question. I didn't notice that this information was in our packet. Is there a way of us getting this information sent to us?
Absolutely. I can coordinate with Nikki. Should have a PDF report of this. I don't have your contact information, but I think, yes, go ahead, Greg.
So Renee and all board members, the audit was emailed to you about 2 weeks ago when it was completed, and then the packet has a link to where it is on our website. So you and the public can look on the website and download the entire audit.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
And any questions, I did not mention this earlier, but if you haven't had or taken the time to review the report, if you do so and you have questions, direct those through your management, Nikki in this case. And if there's something that she cannot answer that needs to come on to us, send that on through. I know I've said we're moving on from the audit business, but this is work we did for you, and we work for you as a board. So if there's questions that you have that you feel need to be answered, please get those to us through Nikki if necessary. Great question. Anybody else? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody or hearing anybody. Please interrupt me if there is. I don't want to talk over somebody. I get to going and into my presentation and forget that there's people that might have questions. So just unmute your mic and stop me. The next report is a report that we are required by our professional standards to give you about some of the things that happened during the audit process. Again, we are most of this report is boilerplate language. In fact, if you would go to one of the other school districts that we perform audits for, much of this is going to look very, very similar. And that is because, again, we didn't find anything that we needed to modify to tell you about. The first page here on this, on our letterhead, is just a letter of introduction of what's in this package. And then the next spot is a place where we call it a management comment letter. It's a place where if we find anything we think you as a board might want to be aware of, but it wasn't so severe or so important that we needed to include it in our report, this is a place where we can do that. And we have a comment that we had last year, and this is more of an attention getter or attention grabber. And obviously, I've been listening to the whole board meeting. I think you're all aware of COVID-19 and the chaos that is created from a work at home, work in the school district, kind of an environment. And so just a reminder that anytime you have those kind of disruptions, there is the increased possibility or the increased opportunity even for bad things to happen in terms of financial reporting. We didn't find anything. This is just to put out to you as a board. Continue to take a look and ask detailed questions of Nikki as to what she's doing. We didn't find anything bad. This is not a bad comment about her. It's something to just be aware of anytime there's changes or stress in an environment. Those are opportunities for mistakes to happen and not get corrected, or for even worse things to happen. The second item is an item that was requested from ODE in order to be able to reimburse you for some funds. We found during our audit a calculation error in an Excel spreadsheet, and it allowed you to recuperate some money. None of this was at a level that would needed to be required needed to be reported in the single audit. But it's something that they wanted documented in a public document so that they had the ability to come back and reimburse the district for that. So there's a comment regarding that. And the rest of the report then is fairly boilerplate language. I do want to call attention to our engagement letter. And the only reason I bring this to your attention, we include it in this packet. It's so those of you who didn't get to see or read in detail what it is you contracted us to do, here is that contract. And the last thing in this packet is the items that we asked the management, your staff, to sign off on as part of our audit. And so this includes all the things that our professional standards say we need to get in writing from your management as a part of our audit process. And we include it because we think it's indicative of the type of work we're doing for you. It gives a good example of some of the things we go over with your management. And so that's why we've included that in this report. That's all I have, except to answer any of your questions.
Jeremy, I just want to quickly say thank you. I, as a new board member, had one experience with the previous auditing firm, and it didn't go great. There was a reason we went out for an RFP and found you all, and I appreciate the service that we've received after the last 4 years. And something I always really look forward to is that, like, December 30th call from somebody in your office saying, hey, as a school board member, do you have thoughts, concerns, questions, anything you want to tell us? Here's what we found. And it's generally a fairly quick conversation because we have amazing staff here doing amazing jobs. But I just appreciate that extra opportunity for board members to directly speak, about concerns with the firm. And it's unfortunate, but I understand things change, and I wish Wilcox Arendano all the best going forward.
Thank you so much. It was a very hard decision. I won't belabor the point and spend a lot of time on it. We felt like we did quality work, and it's a very, very hard thing to let go of. And I do want to express my gratitude. Except for the first year, I've been involved in the audit process all along with Newberg School District, and have been very, very appreciative of the approach that management has taken in terms of prioritizing getting us information and the things we need in order to complete that audit. It's a very
think we
in
hit
place.
hesitation there. There we go.
I'm sorry, did it catch up?
That's okay. No problem.
Okay. Just, it's really important though that those things are monitored and taken seriously, and we have appreciated the board in that they have made that a priority, and also for the management. Joe is no longer here, but Joe and Nikki, in terms of their input and their ability to get us the documentation, and Nikki's staff have been wonderful. So thank you very much.
Jeremy, thank you very much for all you're doing, and good luck moving forward. And Newberg schools really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, as we move forward in the next thing here, we're going to have a little presentation from Dr. Novotny. Dr. Novotny serves as the superintendent of the Willamette E Educational Service District, WESD. He has offered to serve the Newberg School District as an intern superintendent for a limited period of time, and he has some goals and some things he'd like to say to us. So it's his time.
So thank you, Chair Brown, members of the board. It's a privilege to be with you this evening. If you don't mind, I want to pause just for a moment and acknowledge the excellent work of Nikki Fowler and the staff in the business office. This is truly a high point of this board meeting to get such an outstanding audit report from our independent auditors. 3 A's or 3 grade A's is outstanding. So kudos to those folks. So when I met with Chair Brown back on January 3rd, it was to kind of design the agenda for today's board meeting. He asked, Dave, would you mind sharing your thoughts as far as what the next 60 days might look like for the Newberg School District? And I accepted the challenge because, as you know, I haven't been with the Newberg School District for very long. I think this is my 7th day. And so I'll give it my best shot. Next slide, please. So the overview of my presentation today is really designed to answer or address 3 key areas that you're probably wondering about. What is the new interim superintendent up to? What steps has he taken really to learn about the school district, the staff, and the issues that are important for us to address in the next 60 days? What do you think my vision would be, or my thoughts as far as leading the district over the next 60 days? And then probably having a brief discussion as far as what the next steps will be. And then, of course, we'll leave time at the end of the presentations for questions and discussion. Next slide, please. So the next section here, I titled my first 7 days, quote, on the job, unquote. Because as you know, I really don't have a signed contract at this time, but I decided to volunteer my time to help support the district to get us to this meeting and beyond. And so next slide, please. The first thing I want you to know is that I've received a very warm welcome from everyone that I've met in the district. And I thought, for the sake of transparency, I should report out on what steps I have taken to learn about the district and to meet some of the key employees in the district and so on. So at this point in time, in the last 7 days, I've participated in 2 cabinet meetings, one in person, one via Zoom. I met with the K-12 leadership team and participated in a 2-hour professional development activity that was excellent. It focused on Danielson's evaluation system for teachers. I had a 1-hour meeting with the Chair Brown to get to know him better as a member of the board and to design the agenda for today's meeting. I met with a number of individual administrators. That number is beyond 6 now. It's probably 7 or 8. And I've met with district legal counsel to get a better understanding of some of the more pressing legal and policy issues that the board is facing right now. Next slide, please. We have, of course, developed the agenda for today's meeting, prepared the presentation that I'm walking you through, met with the district office staff, and then I've scheduled meetings with individual board members, or we're at least going through that process of scheduling individual meetings. I'm of the philosophy that even though I'm going to be with you for a relatively short period of time, I think I can be a better leader in the next 60 days if I get to know board members a little bit better and understand your goals and priorities for the school district over the next 60 days. And thus far, I've had 3 meetings with board members thus far. I'm scheduling meetings with union leadership, and I've reviewed all current complaints and lawsuits, so I have a better understanding of some of those issues facing the district as well. Next slide, please. So in the next several slides, I'm going to try to outline my thoughts in leading the school district for the next 60 days. Next slide, please. And I hate to do this, but there are some limitations that I need to make you aware of. I think it's just practical that we put this on the table and make sure everyone's aware of it. You know, I need to recognize that I'm an outsider. I've only been on the job now for 7 days. So I don't have all the information that I probably need to have in order to lead effectively, but I'll work hard at getting that information so I can be a better leader for the district in the next 60 days. We all know that there's been a significant reduction in executive administration at the district office. So in my organization, executive administration is identified as the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the board secretary. And of course, Newberg School District doesn't have any of those positions. And I'm backfilling right now 16 hours a week, when traditionally you'd have about 120 hours a week at the minimum working on behalf of the district. So we're backfilling with about 13% or so of the FTE. And we all know that your previous superintendent, assistant superintendent, board secretary worked far more than 40 hours per week. So there's going to be some limitations in that regard. And then there's a number of unknowns and challenges. We're all aware of the surge in COVID cases. And I need to pause and just let board members know that COVID has presented a really, really difficult challenge for our building administrators, our teachers, and our classified employees, our students and families. We are having challenges in just making sure that we have enough staff in the school to safely run our schools. And so we've already had to make, as you know, some difficult decisions about closing classrooms and other things like that. And my concern is, of course, that the surge is going to continue to get worse for the next couple of weeks until we start to see some relief, maybe later in the month of January, hopefully. We have the unknowns related to the recall election. And then if there are additional complaints and lawsuits that come our way, that just kind of adds to the mountain of work that we have to process with limited FTE, of course. So next slide, please. And before I share a little bit more about the concrete work, I wanted to make a few general comments. So in my personal and professional life, I put a high value on civility and professionalism in everything that I do, whether it's my work as a school superintendent, whether it's how I interact with people on a regular basis. I really value those two things. And my request for the board of directors is during the next 60 days and beyond, I'm hoping that the board of directors will help model these values for the Newberg community as we do this really difficult work over the next 60 days. I also wanted to make a promise to each of the board members that I will assume positive intent in everything that you say and do. And I'm hoping that you will extend that same positive intent to me. Once again, being new to the Newberg School District, I may not be well aware of all of the processes, the protocols, the history, the context for various conversations. So I hope that you would extend that positive intent to me and others. I've been real clear on this. As soon as we possibly can, I'd like to put the focus back on teaching and learning and have that be an area of emphasis in all of our board meetings. Now, there are challenges, of course, because we have a lot of processes that we have to get through, right? But when it's possible, we want to put that focus squarely back on teachers and students. And then, of course, I'm hoping that we can extend grace to each other and be flexible and patient as we go forward in the next 60 days. Once again, because of some limitations in FTE, your board packets may not be as professional as they once were. They may not be as complete. There may be information that you're requesting that we just don't have the staffing to get to you in as timely a manner as you did maybe a year ago. So I hope you understand that and would extend that grace. Next slide, please. So here's the important, or the meat of the presentation as far as the next 60 days. So at the next board meeting, whenever we know the certified final results of the recall election, okay, we have a lot of work to do. And in my view, we have to find a positive way to move forward no matter the outcome. And I know that it may take a while to certify the election. So we may have that information by January 25th, or we may not have the information until the first meeting in February. But regardless, we need to start rolling up our sleeves and putting that important work in front of the board to start making some decisions. I do think in the very near future, maybe as early as the January 25th board meeting, we need to have an executive session. We know that we have 2 complaints that have been appealed to the board. There's been additional work that's been done on them, and we need to present that information to the board in executive session. And we think that the board would be able to make a decision on that in open session. And we know, as a matter of running schools, that if a complainant has an issue, we like to try to get a response or resolve that as quickly as possible. So I would encourage the board to address these type of issues. And of course, we want to put the spotlight back on students and staff. I've already mentioned that. A tremendously important decision that the board needs to weigh in on, I would hope, at the January 25th board meeting, is selecting a superintendent search firm. And then we know that there's also going to need to be board approval to award a transportation contract. And we'll get that before you, hopefully at the January 25th board meeting or the first meeting in February. Next slide, please. And then the next slide, or excuse me, this slide is really just a list of priorities. If you had to ask me right now, Dave, what's your overriding concern? My concern is about the health and safety of students and staff, period. The surge in COVID-19 cases is abundantly clear. It is going to be problematic for us. We'll work through that. We have building administrators, teachers, and so on, who are struggling just to kind of make it to the next day. And so I'll be monitoring that situation very, very carefully, along with the other leaders in the district office. I think we need to continue to support teaching and learning, especially in this really difficult environment right now, especially if we have to pivot to distant learning at any point in time because of the surge in COVID cases. Selecting the new superintendent will be your biggest decision you probably have before you, hopefully in the next 60 days. Also during this time, we have to start working on the budget for next year. And that's going to be a terribly important process for the board to weigh in on. And even though I don't think I'm going to need to be heavily involved in the bond implementation may need some support from me in the coming 2 months, and I'll be prepared to roll up my sleeves and help support that work as well. We'll need to have a presentation at an upcoming board meeting as far as how we're going to move forward and process the numerous complaints that have been submitted to the board. I'll need to create a transition plan for the new superintendent so that the new superintendent, whether it's male or female, can hit the ground running. I have to tell you, when I came to the district, there was not a lot of information in one place for me to find out about the agency because of the abrupt departure of Dr. Morlock. And I want to make sure that the new superintendent has that information readily available, and we help transition in the new superintendent so he or she can be successful. And then if necessary, we want to have a good plan to orient any new board members to the Newberg School Board. Next slide, please. So the challenge, as I see it, is advancing this really difficult work. This is the important work of the district in the next 60 days, and at the same time, bringing people together. And in my opinion, both of these things need to occur at the same time. And that's going to be, like I said, a real challenge. We're going to have to be super dedicated. We're going to have to work as a team. We're going to have to be resilient. We're going to have to be super focused. And we're going to have to really keep students and staff at the forefront of our mind as we kind of move forward in the next 60 days. That is really the important goal. Next slide, please. So next steps is relatively easy. Next slide, please. At the end of this presentation, I would love to answer any questions that you may have. I'd like to hear your input, any guidance that you care to share with me. And you can do that after this meeting as well. If you have any thoughts, I'm very open to that. But I really need to know if I'm headed in the right direction or if there's a course correction that's needed. I will tell you that the meetings that I've had with individual board members have been incredibly helpful. I have met with Director Pyros, Director Powell, and of course, Chair Brown. And I know that we have several other board members who have reached out and we're in the process of scheduling those meetings. But that's super helpful to get to know board members individually, but to hear your goals and priorities. So the last thing then, of course, is you have the unique opportunity to hear from me at this point in time before you approve the intergovernmental agreement between the Willamette ESD and your school district. So if I'm moving in the wrong direction, now is a good time for a course correction. Or if there's anything that you hear during this presentation that doesn't resonate with you and think that you made a mistake, you don't need to take action on that IGA, of course. Next slide, please. This may present itself as a little bit corny, but I really believe that there are some heartfelt beliefs among board members that we can take steps to come together and work more as a team. And a lot of that hard work is going to happen in the next 60 days. And I really do think that the next 60 days are going to be super critical for the Newberg School District and for the board. So I honestly believe, professionally and personally, that we can do this. It'll be tough, but we can do this. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll go ahead and next slide, open it up to questions.
Dr. Navarrete?
Yes.
I was wondering if you could share any ideas you have to of how to bring us together.
Thank you, Director Pyros. That is, of course, the difficult question, right? Mm-hmm. But in individual meetings with board members that I've had right now, I believe that there is an opportunity for members of the board to think outside of the box. And to Director Powell's suggestion, I think it was earlier, maybe there could be some sort of facilitated work session where we can bring in a neutral person to start to address some of these issues. That's certainly a way forward. I would say that as an interim superintendent, my job, as I see it, is to see if there's opportunities to find common ground between board members. That's why I think those individual meetings with board members is so important. So I get to know the board member as an individual, hear their goals and priorities, and maybe having that information will allow me to navigate a particular topic and find that middle ground so that we can find consensus on a rather controversial topic. So those are two things that we can certainly consider, and I'm sure there will be others as well, but those are the two I'm happy to share with you.
Thank you.
Dr. Navani, thank you for the presentation and for outlining your goals and direction for the next 60 days. I I think I probably know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear. It's only been 7 days that you've been on the job, granted. So, and without an approved contract at this point. So thank you for that. Knowing that we're so incredibly stretched thin at the district office specifically, and of course in the buildings, but not having anyone in that superintendent and assistant superintendent position and you coming in, can you kind of just maybe 10,000 foot level tell us a little bit about the process around the COVID safety protocols? I mean, I know we're following all the CDC and county health guidelines and of course ODE guidelines, but Greg's been great about communicating, hey, we had 70 teachers out. What does that mean? And like I said, I understand that this is an ever-changing situation and you've only been here for 7 days and everybody's filling in where they can. But if you could just give us a little bit of an idea of kind of what that process is like every day and going forward of, are we having school? Are we not? And what that looks like from your perspective.
Sure. So thank you, Director Penner. There's a bright spot to share, and then I'll share a significant concern. The bright spot is my interactions with the administrators at the district office, the leaders of the district, is they have a really good handle on the day-to-day operations of our schools and our programs and so on. They're very much in tune to the difficult staffing issues that we're facing, the number of COVID cases in the district. We have a stellar nurse who is just doing tremendous work. So that's really the bright spot. The area of concern is we're running out of COVID tests. We're at the point where we're right at that margin where we may not have enough teachers in order to operate some schools going forward here in the coming days. And it's a mad rush every day at the end of the day to find out if staff will be potentially returning the next day. And then of course, early the next morning to find out if there's new staff members that are unable to come in and so on. And our ability, not my ability, but the ability of district administrators to shuffle staff around to cover has just been incredible. But I don't think that we can continue that for much longer if the number of cases continue to rise. So that's my concern.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions there for Dr. Novotny? Dr. Novotny, is that all you had, or do you want to have some more time?
No, that's plenty of time. Thank you very much. And once again, it really is a pleasure to be working with you folks and the staff of Newberg School District. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you very much. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda after that. I'm going to go ahead and read these out. There's some important ones in there. You guys can kind of see that yourselves if you're looking on the screen. So, we have donations for the Gene Caldwell Trust of $1,413.78 to the Newberg High School Scholarship Fund. That is great. Thank you. The PFLAG Newberg, $1,100 to the NHS Gender and Sexuality Alliance Club. The PFLAG, $1,100 to the NHS Black Student Union, and the PFLAG, $1,100 to the NHS Mecca Club. Thank you for those donations. We have approving 2 licensed contracts. Karen called Kadiako, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, apologize, at Mabel Rush, and Sydney Matney, a teacher at Mabel Rush also. The resignations of Noah Rijos from Mountain View Middle School, from Rachel Kaiser at Ewing Young Elementary School, for Bridget Fogu from a speech language pathologist, David Grobin, a teacher at Salem Valley Middle School, Dr. Derek Brown, assistant superintendent, and David Jamies from Edwards Elementary School. So that is our consent agenda as read. And again, thank you for the donations to our students. at the school, and thank you for everybody for serving in our schools. If you're moving on, good luck with your next endeavors. Reports and presentations is next with Nikki Fowler. Nikki, are you ready?
Nope, Dave, we've got to vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I move that we accept the consent agenda as read.
I second.
Right there. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand. We are 7-0. Thank you very much, you guys. Appreciate that. Nikki Fowler, are you ready?
I am ready.
Thank you.
I think it will be presented here in just a second. Dr. Novotny, is she putting that part up, or do you want me to just talk about? Oh, there it is. Perfect. So it's a fairly short, I have a few short notes and I have some to add to this. And comparing this to our last report, the ending fund balance numbers come down a bit. The bulk of that is the beginning fund balance from the prior year. As reported earlier, we just wrapped up the audit. We budgeted about 9.9 million coming in, and we're closer to the 9.4 million mark coming in from last year. So that's a significant piece in there. As Jeremy spoke about, we will be going out for RFP for new auditors for the upcoming year. But our current auditors, are ready and willing to answer any questions from this year and also through the transition as we move to new auditors, because there's lots of things that they can pass on. So new auditors don't have to rebuild all the history that this company has put together in their time with us. So they'll be very helpful and supportive in that process. And as far as our district business office and HR office, we're beginning the work of putting together next year's budget. So the groundwork of that is a lot of data, pulling together and checking staffing data, getting the numbers aligned, rolling folks into a new year so we can start building our staffing numbers, as those are the biggest pieces to our budget. So that's kind of where we are right now and doing our year-end stuff from the prior year. One of the questions that was brought forward was, where are we with the Dundee property? We have purchased that. So the new building site in Dundee, it's a done deal. We have it all purchased, ready to go. So you'll be hearing more about that as we go along. Can we move to the next slide, please? Next page. So this page is the summary of our other funds. So the first part are grant funds. The middle part, you'll see that we've made our first payment on our debt service. So that would be our first payment for our new bonds, and then our typical payment for our PERS bond we have out there. And then the last part you'll see under the 400 fund, those are capital projects. So that's a combination between our new bond funding and the previous capital project fund that we have. But the significant number, if you look down there under encumbered expenditures, $11 million, you're starting to see some significant spending. As we're planning all the projects, we're starting to get things geared up for next summer, getting all those contracts in place for those different things. So you'll start to see a lot of money rolling through that area. In addition to that, you won't see it here, but we're also watching the spend down schedule constantly. So the money that is not being spent over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, we're pushing out into investments and trying to earn as much as we can on that. So we're constantly watching the cash flow between our general checking account and our pool accounts, along with our extended bank account, because our pool can only hold up to $51 million. So we have another account that we have to put that overage in if they're not invested. So that just covers kind of a overall summary of our other funds. Can you go to the next page, please? This is the usual report with our expenditures by function. There were a couple items here that I received questions on. The technology line down at 2660. Yeah, so it's significantly over right now. But the reason that is looking like that right now is we received an additional grant that's just over $400,000. We had first put it out in a grant fund, but the way it's written, it needs to be paid for out of our general fund. So we moved those expenditures back over here. I'll be following up with a resolution to put the budget side along with that, so it doesn't look so out of whack before we get done here. I just wanted to make you aware of that. That's a significant grant that will be covering a lot of our technology purchases that are sitting in there. The other one is under psychology, much smaller than that number, but under psychological services under 2140. We have a little bit of an overage there. The majority of that will be going over to our IDEA grant. We corrected some staffing in there, and it looks like that we have a little more to move over there. So that is about all that stands out right there. Can you go to the next page, please? And again, this is showing our revenue on the top part. The main things that I want to point, one of the questions I had here was near the bottom, the revenue line 3299, where it talks about 175,000. It was asked, the question was why it's so much less than the prior year. That money or that grant comes from high cost disability students. And so that's directly related to students that we spend more than 30 to 35,000, I forget which number it is, per student per year. And we're able to, we fill out a collection, data collection for that. And then throughout the state, there's a pot of money that's split up to reimburse district for those costs over that number. So that can fluctuate from year to year, depending on what students we have in the district and what students are in this category across the state. So we estimate that in the current budget, it's estimated at 175. The prior year, well, we have some estimates. We're still reconciling the prior year, but currently it looks like we might have about 204,000 coming in for that. So that remains to be seen. We won't have that final answer from the prior year until May when that gets reconciled. So the main thing, the bottom line here, I talked about the ending fund balance coming down a bit from the last report. So we're at about 7.2. But when we budgeted this year, we talked about that. We knew that this year we would have some enrollment issues. And so we did know, and we're very aware that we're going to be spending that down a little bit, but that is just a sign of the budget work that we need to do. So when I was talking about starting a lot of that stuff, looking at staffing, working through those projections, that's just where we are right now with our enrollment. I don't see any indicators of it increasing at this point. So we're going to have to start preparing for what next year is going to look like. Are there any questions?
Not a question, but more so a comment. Nikki, thank you so much for all the work that you put into this. I know that I bugged you last minute with questions, so thank you for answering those. Really, if anybody has questions, Nikki's always willing to help get those clarified for us. And it just makes our process more transparent and clear moving forward. So thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
I agree. It's not so much a question, just to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, the bond work that's ongoing, and then of course the purchase of the property for Dundee. These are massive undertakings when you have a fully staffed office, and when you don't. I mean, I know you all are pouring your hearts and energies and talents into doing this work, and it is incredibly important work that our community has said, yes, we need this and we want this. And so I just appreciate your work with it, but also all the staff's work with it, because, you know, my impression basically is that there's like 3 people driving the bond ship, and that is not a lot. So thank you. And of course that purchasing that was in the works for, you know, a couple of years, and it was so exciting that got completed and can move on to the next stage of that. And then just really quickly, you mentioned the grants, some of the grant income. And I just want to say thank you, because those grants aren't just checks in the mail that show up. Those are indications of staff who have put time and effort into looking for them, into approaching, businesses or organizations or state agencies in order to fill some of those budgeting gaps with funds. And that takes time and a great amount of effort. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who has helped our students and staff immensely with your time and efforts in that grant writing area.
Yes, I'd echo that. I mean, it's definitely a team endeavor doing that. It's certainly not something that I sit there and do by myself. Everybody's hands are in it and everybody supports each other. So it's really good thing.
Okay. Nikki, as usual, you do a great job. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. It's so clear. Thank you very, very much. So we move on into the new business area, and the next one is still under Nikki there. She's accepting the financial audit. So Nikki, I'll let you handle that.
Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. Jeremy presented the audit just a little while ago, and so you just need to make a motion to formally accept it. And unless you have any questions, that's all we need is a motion and a vote.
Okay. I will move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors approve the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021 as submitted.
I'll second.
I think we had two there. I think Brian might have beat you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Rebecca's always good about that. Thank you, guys. All right. All those in favor of accepting this audit from Jeremy Gingrich and Wilcox and Arredondo, please raise your right hand. And that passes 7-0. Thank you very much. All right. Nikki, again, thank you for all your help on those. Our next one is going to be the approval of the intern superintendent contract, and that is going to go to Lisa Freely from Lemon ESD.
Okay, we'll let Tishri pull it up here. And just to be clear, in this particular conversation, while I'm housed at the ESD, I am acting in this particular situation as counsel for the Newberg School District. Any legal advice that the ESD got was from an attorney different than me. So I did not advise Dr. Novotny or any of the board on this particular issue. Okay, so the draft IGA you have in your packet is a standard intergovernmental agreement that the ESD uses. And in fact, this is a form that many school districts across the region use. It includes the statutory language that talks about the sharing of resources amongst each other. The real key components that are important are the duties and responsibilities that have been put into that section. And Tishri, I think it's down like on page 3. Yeah, page 3 or something. Here we go. A little bit farther down the document. Okay, so you'll see here that there are some duties for the Newberg School District, and there's all of the language that I inserted into these two sections came from the conversation that Chair Brown had with Dr. Novotny as they were exploring whether or not this would be something that would work for both parties. So it outlines what the ESD is asking and what they will do. So you'll see some provisions in there. And to be perfectly honest, from Dr. Novotny's perspective, what he sought was more of boundaries of what he would not be asked to do. And so the terms in this are talking about that he is not going to be required to basically guide any of the legal causes of action that we have. You have staff that is perfectly capable between Nikki and the staff that you have in the central office, and you have legal counsel assigned to all of them. So there really is no need at this point for him to take any front and center role in that process. and that he will provide, he may provide support, kind of process support, but he is not going to have to issue any decisions regarding any complaints, which would be filed via the board's complaint process. And that he's not going to be asked to do anything that would jeopardize his license or require him to violate state or federal laws, ordinances, or regulations. You'll notice that there is no fee for this. The ESD is doing it as just a function of a service to one of their member districts. And then you will see down below what the ESD's duties obligation, ESD has committed to you, is that he will be in the district at least 2 days a week, that he will perform all those tasks which are required by state or federal law to be performed by a superintendent. And there are several of those that only a superintendent can perform. He will provide the support for students and staff so that they can focus on teaching and learning. He will oversee day-to-day administration with a focus on operations and that working relationship between the board and the district office. And if needed, he will provide assistance in assisting the board in developing a process to select a permanent superintendent for the Newberg School District, and just generally provide some stabilizing, be a stabilizing force in the district office for you. And again, you're not asking a fee, they're not asking a fee. And so that's why we've used the not applicable in there. Are there any, to be honest, that's the nuts and bolts of this, beyond just the thing that you've agreed that you will indemnify each other for whatever liability or responsibility you each bring to the table. If Newberg does something that creates a risk, you will be responsible for it. If the ESD does something, they'll be responsible for it. We did drop some language in at the request of the WESD board and Dr. Novotny that clearly states that the Newberg School District does not intend to associate any liability for any of the legal actions that were implemented or started prior to Dr. Novotny starting this position to the ESD or to Dr. Novotny as a interim superintendent. But I think that's the basics of this agreement.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions or anybody?
I'll move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors approve the intergovernmental agreement between WUSD and Newberg School District as submitted.
I second.
All right, thank you for that. All those in favor of approving this intern superintendent contract, please raise your right hand. It passes 7-0. Lisa, thank you very much for explaining that very well as usual.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Good job writing that up.
We just need you guys to all put signatures on the piece of paper, okay?
Say again.
Dave will just need to have you, sorry, Board Chair Brown, you will just need to sign it so that then we can get the ESD to sign it.
Got it. Thank you very much. Lisa, again, thank you very, very much for doing that for us.
Yep.
Item C is reappointing the Budget Committee. Nikki Fowler, do you want to comment on this again?
You're muted, Nikki.
I thought I hit that, but thank you, Brandy. So this is pretty straightforward as well. All of our budget committee members that were expiring have agreed to continue on. So this, we just need to reappoint those members. And I would recommend all of them. They've all been very active and asked great questions and are not afraid to ask questions, which I really appreciate in the process. So we are looking for a recommendation to reappoint these members.
I did have I'm sorry, I had a question for Nikki. Do we need to have people apply for zones 7, 2, and 3, or I mean, because I noticed that
No.
They have staggering dates. So these are the only 4 that expire this year. The
Okay.
other ones will expire on a different year. And
Okay.
so then we'll go through that process with them at that time.
Okay. So they're still in place. Okay.
Okay, I'd like to move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors appoint Beth Statz for Zone 1, AJ Schwantz for Zone 4, Melissa Daly for Zone 5, and Kat McNeil for Zone 6 as Budget Committee members serving from January 2022 through December 31st, 2024.
I second.
All right. Thank you for the motions. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes 7-0. Okay. Nikki, great job again. Thank you very much for that.
Aren't we supposed to approve the calendar?
There's one more piece to that. Yeah, you're correct, Rebecca. We have one more piece with that.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So the second part of that is approving the budget calendar. It was presented, I believe, early November. I'm losing track of time. So at this point, you are just approving that calendar so we can move forward. Just take note that we have some training coming up in early February. So put these on your calendar so you can spend some quality time with myself and our staff at the district office. But we're just looking for a motion to approve this.
I'll move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors approve the budget process calendar for 2022-2023 budget as presented.
I second.
All right. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nikki, very much. All right. Dr. Novotny already kind of alluded to in our future agenda items. The 25th meeting will be a lot of stuff on the complaint issues that have come before some of our things we've had in the past that we need to get finished up on. If there's an executive session, we will get that out to you right away as far as scheduling that. The superintendent search is a big one for as far as that meeting goes. Also for all the board members, if you have anything else that you would like to see added to that meeting, please do. Please reach out. It'll be probably a little bit longer meeting than this one, so appreciate that. I'd also like to add to everybody out there in the public, this has been a difficult time for sure, but I would like to ask everybody to maybe try to separate one thing out. In my 2 years and 8 months on the board, I would not question any of the 7 board members' commitment to kids and staff. We may go about it in a different way, and we may think about things differently, but the board does care. All 7 board members do really care a lot. So before you judge people too much, regardless of which board member you're talking about, I've had 2 years and 8 months with most of the board members, and been around them enough to know that they all do really care about our school district. We're struggling on how to do that together for sure. That's easy to see. And then hopefully somebody like Dr. Novotny can help us to move forward on that. I think all of the harsh rhetoric, whether it goes one way or another, would be better if we put that towards trying to reconcile rather than trying to maybe get after or say harsh things to people on either side. And as a board members, that's going to be a big challenge for us. And I hope we're up for that challenge. I'd also like to say to Brian Shannon, regardless of how this recall goes, it's been an honor. He is my friend, and we came in at the board at the same time. We will always share what we had to walk into and what we've had to walk through. And you will always be my friend, Brian Shannon. And regardless of how people perceive you or I thank you for your service to the school district. With that said, I'll adjourn this meeting. And again, appreciate everybody. And